Beautiful souls, this is part 2 of my response to an email I received from someone named Steve. If you haven't seen the first video, it's tagged below because there you can read the entire email. In part 2, we're going to talk about Steve's definition of religion because it is way off base. Next, you say, unfortunately, the campaign that you have launched against religion does not accurately define the word, quote, religion. The true meaning is as follows: the activity or ministry that focuses on the comfort and compassion and aid to the fatherless children and widowed women. If one is involved in this, they can say that they are religious. Stephen, what alternative universe are you living in? I am not saying that compassion and empathy and sacred activism cannot arise from an organized religious structure. I've never said that. But you are conflating religion to fit a narrative. And that's a narrative that completely disregards the thousands of years of history where things have been done in the name of religion. Some of it's good and some of it's not so good. Perhaps in that review of my content, you have missed the videos where I have talked about religion and saying that in its purest form, religion should be the conduit through which a person's spirituality can be nurtured and a community of like-minded individuals come together to do good work. But Steve, come on. You have to admit that history has proven that oftentimes that is not what happened. History clearly shows that patriarchy planted its ugly feet inside the religious structure. Let's just start with Christianity. When the Catholic Church was selling indulgences, that really made Martin Luther mad. He comes out and he declares that. And he also says, by the way, I don't need the Pope to be an intercessor between me and God. So I'm going to take some people over here and we're going to do our own thing. Something like that. And then you got King Henry VIII over here that said, well, screw all that. I'm going to go start my own church. And when I do that, I can then divorce my wife and go marry another. And when I'm bored with her, I can unalive her. Now, there's a lot of history mixed up in that, Steve. I admit that, but you tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me that the Protestant Reformation wasn't the catalyst for schism after schism and denomination after denomination being created until the world is filled with thousands of churches all over the world. And why is that, Steve? Well, it's certainly not because they can't agree on the definition of compassion and how to take care of the fatherless children and the widowed women. It's because they can't agree on scripture. It's because they can't agree on who's going to be in power. And yes, it could be said that Jesus was teaching a new moral code to elevate religion to this type of mindset, because his teachings emphasized love, compassion, and justice. But Steve, come on. Is that really what we're seeing inside the church these days? How do you feel about Christian nationalism, Steve? Because I think if you're going to be so vocal about me, you would certainly have an opinion on that. And where I sit, Christian nationalism is the loudest homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, racist voice in the room. What do you have to say about that, Steve? Because in that review of my content, Steve, perhaps you missed the video where I talked about how Christian nationalists are rejecting the teachings of Jesus because they're saying it just doesn't work anymore. How do you feel about that, Steve? Who are you emailing about that? Now, in part 3, we'll talk about Steve's assertion that I have an arrogant tone. So stay tuned.